This week, lots of them have been paid, right? But those are the coupons. The coupons, that's the interest. Because those are smaller sums, they have been paid. But a bigger hurdle to clear is the maturities, that's the principals. Yes, so government has to, make known its intentions because these are well overdue. Well overdue. Things that every day we keep saying the same thing. We lend you money, it's time to pay, and they are giving us Anansi stories. It just doesn't jive. So, and the good thing is that, the IMF money, initially, we were made to understand that it was for balance of payment, this is support, right?
Yes.
So we thought it was all going to Bank of Ghana. But the press conference the IMF did, it's clear that, and government has said it, you are free to use the money also for their other projects. So in that wise, then the simplest thing and the wisest thing to do is to pay people you owe first before you go and do other development projects. And in actual fact, it's not even a discretion. Like I keep saying, it's a constitutional injunction that anytime you are developing, just be sure that you have provided for the livelihood of citizens. But in this case, we even have a stronger reason because it's not freebies we are asking the government to give us. No, it's not freebies. We are not begging. It's not lala sulala, right? But rather, it is government that owes us. And thank God, IMF says government can use the money for other projects as well. So then, naturally, let's do the constitutional injunction. And Mr. Counsel, let's read it briefly. It says, the state shall take all necessary action to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness of every person in Ghana, and to provide adequate means of livelihood and suitable employment and public assistance to the needy, and to provide, adequate means of livelihood. Adequate means of livelihood. So once we depend on the coupons and the principals for our livelihood, naturally, government should pay us. Because the Constitution is even saying, give us free, provide. But we all know that practically, we will run aground. That's how come we usually provide for only the poorest of the poor. That's those on the LEAP project. That's livelihood empowerment against poverty. Yes, and that's been there for over a decade now. Yes, so beyond that, the rest of us who have been able to gather a few cedis and have lent money to government, there's a constitutional injunction. It's not a discretion. No, it says provide adequate means of livelihood. Yes.
It is a responsibility that has to be fulfilled.
Excellent. But here is the case. We are not asking for freebies. Just give it to us because it's our own money before you undertake other development. And the common saying we've always been using in this case, that government has to cut its coat according to its cloth. You look at the amount of your resources. Don't live beyond your means. Remember even the German ambassador bringing it in. He joined. You can imagine a German, a foreign diplomat had to join because he saw that the government just wasn't listening. Hey, and before I even forget, I don't know if we are coming there. Now that the IMF money, at least first tranche is in, I hope Ufuriata is on his way out. I hope he's on his way out because that's what the president promised the 98 MPs. Honorable, is that not the thing? Eugene Boachi.
You're reminding the president of that.
Yes, I'm not even the first.
After we get an IMF deal.
Yes, that's why he said
is going to be sacked. Well, that's what the MPs who met him said.
Yes.
That's what he promised them.
Eugene Boachi, Honorable Buama, and the rest. Yes, that's what they said. So now that day has come. Maybe, if we thought it was going to take forever, finally it's come. So Furiata has to go because we've all seen that he and the president really drove us into this mess, the binge borrowing, so that data bank can make money for their family. So it's time to go because this money thing has to stop. You can't kill citizens and make the first family rich. No. You don't kill citizens to make the first family rich. If you don't have citizens, you don't have a country. If you don't have a population, you don't have a country. Yeah, so Mr. Kansa also said they've paid coupons. but we are reminding government that there's a constitutional responsibility to provide adequate means of livelihood. So it translates that pay us what you owe before you go on to do the other developmental projects. And you know, when the government pays, the collateral benefit is that it's going to restore confidence in the economy. Yes, because don't forget, it's not only the bondholders. I forgot. You know, the Gold Coast, this is securities now called Black Shield.
Yeah, Black Shield.
Yes, the people are still suffering. They've not been paid.
This has been for the past 6 years or
Can
so,
you imagine?
after the financial sector cleanup.
Yes.
They're not the only ones. There are a number of other the customers of some of these financial institutions
First
that went
Bank,
down.
especially. First Bank, they are quite many.
And that's what we'll get to that. That call for a review of how some of them had their licenses withdrawn and whether it was justly or unjustly done.
Excellent.
So we will get to that particular conversation. But thank you for your initial comments. Now we know what's happening to your members and the individual bondholders. Let's hear from the governor of the central bank during the press conference by the IMF, the joint press conference by the IMF, the Finance Ministry, and then also the Bank of Ghana, which we all watched. But the governor of the central bank made a very instructive statement about the sacrifices we've all had to make to get us this deal. And I'll tell you what the $3 billion, if it comes through in full circle, is going to be used for, because the information minister has been giving indication of what the money is going to be used for. Whether Martin Peeble's expectation that they will use some to pay for their principals, the bondholders, is one that will be fulfilled. But take a look at the governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Support program should not be seen as about the money alone. That is the budget support that comes with the approval. While that helps with the current reserves profile for the central bank, what matters most is the fact that the program sets out a set of policy and structural reforms that should help Ghana to reset our economic policy fundamentals, which was dislodged by the crisis over the last year or so. These deep-seated reforms should re-anchor policy and embed irreversibility in our policy outcomes and ensure that buffers are rebuilt to make our economy more resilient. The second point follows from the first, that this is now the time to begin the work. The program approval is just the beginning of the real work of building Ghana better. And thirdly, the executive board's approval of the support program yesterday, especially if you look at the time frame within which Ghana secured this approval, is an indication of the strong government's political will and commitment to the reform agenda. The painful sacrifice of Ghanaians, especially through some of the measures such as the domestic debt exchange, which has also helped us reach these conclusions very quickly.
Oh, so that's the governor of the central bank making it quite clear the painful sacrifices that we've all had to make to get us to this point. George Kwekuro-Kithagan is joined as former Deputy Finance Minister, Cape Coast South Member of Parliament. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Let me also welcome Dr. Theo Champong, who is joining us on Zoom. He's an economist and political risk analyst. Dr. Theo Champong, good morning. Welcome to KeyPoint.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you and see you clearly. Thank you so much for joining us. And let me bring you in here, Honorable Ahmed, on this. At least what we do know per the further details beyond what was said at this press conference. In fact, I have a copy of the over 130-page IMF, that's the document, this document that details some further information about this particular deal. So we would get into aspects of it in the coming weeks as well. There are 16 structural reforms that have to be completed within this particular deal period, 3 years. 9 have to be completed this year. And from what we understand, the disbursement of this money, $3 billion, will be over a 3-year period. 7 installments. The first 600 million, that's what you see on the screen there. The first 600 million is what has come in yesterday. The second one would come in November, but before the disbursement, there's going to be a review to check whether government has gone by and fulfilled the targets for this period before the next 600 million will be released. Then in May 2024, there's going to be another release predicated by a review in April 2024, 360 million. Then in November 2024, before that, in October 2024, there's going to be another review before, if we fulfilled or have achieved all the targets, then they'll release another $360 million. It follows in that same fashion, May 2025, November 2025, May 2026. That's when the last release or installment, this disbursement will be made based on the review in April 2026. So whichever government comes after 2024 would have both the implications and the benefits of this IMF deal in terms of the monetary benefits of it. But, Honorable, from what we do know, you're going to, or the money is expected to be used for the external debt obligations that were suspended, and now we're expected to pay the energy debt that has been rising, and then also balance of payment support. Those are the three that we understand are the core reasons why, in fact, we're going to be using this $3 billion for. When you listen to the Ghanaian people about this particular deal, and you hear what the finance minister said, the dire consequences that comes with it, what do you expect of government after this program?
Good morning again, Alfred. Good morning to Honorable Ricketts again. And a good morning to... is it incoming, Martin? Am I right in saying incoming? Because I'm hearing you doing a... Anyway.
No.
Anyway. Alfred, good morning to your viewers as well. How did we get to where we are, and what are the consequences that the minister has been calling on Ghanaians to do this burden share? Obviously, we have been running an economy which has significant structural defects that we all agree. We've run an economy under NDC where all government revenues go to defer 3 line items within the budget: transfers to statutory funds, payment of our debt obligations, and then the public wage bill. And so we have had inherent issues with the structure of the budget that we run. So when external factors hit us, we tend to feel it, and feel it very, very, very strongly. So with what transpired within COVID, subsequent to the Russian-Ukraine war, we have had to deal with our own domestic issues like the financial sector cleanup, all at the same time. So it meant that we were very much exposed. That led to the situation where government recognized by itself, if you look at our budget, the 2023 budget, government itself had 7 points in there. In there was going to be an aggressive mobilization of domestic revenue. We're going to look at the structural defects. We're going to rationalize our expenditures. We're going to look at those social interventions that government is doing to be able to safeguard or protect the very poor in the society. Government itself believed that those 7 points were going to bring a resolution. So government started by bringing a policy like the e-levy that went to Parliament. At the time when we were saying that we're not going to go to the IMF, we believed that those local policies were actually going to resolve the challenges that we're facing as an economy. Unfortunately, we went to Parliament, and the politics of the day took the better of us. A policy had gone to Parliament in November of 2021. Not until May or June the following year did we. In the meantime, our external partners identified that we couldn't meet our debt obligations, and if we couldn't, it had dire consequences. It resulted in us downgrading. At the time, the whole global economy was also recovering from the menace of COVID. We realized the performance of our currency, the flights in, domestic investment, given the interest rate regimes out there in Europe, in the US, investments were moving from our local aid, and given the pressure on our currency, they had a lot of issues at the same time.
So you were banking your hopes on the e-levy, not to go to the IMF.
I said that with the budget, we had 7 policies that we're going to run. Inclusive in there is a aggressive mobilization of domestic resources.
Which was
and
major.
in there, e-levy was important. It wasn't the only one. We're looking at our expenditure rationalization. We're looking at how we're going to save the poor. We're looking at how to resolve the structural issues, including the energy sector and the cocoa sector. We're all in the budget. There were things that government intended to do to be able to resolve the challenges we're facing at the time.
There was an intention to do that.
Of course, that's what budgets.
Did you do that?
That is what budgets.
Were you able to?
That is what budgets are meant for. Unfortunately, when the budget went to Parliament, then the whole budget was passed, but the revenue mobilization policy, which was key, was deferred and delayed because of the politics of the day. And it got us into a situation where because our partners out there realized that we couldn't meet our debt obligations, it led to our economy being downgraded. It led to the curtailing of our access to international markets. At the same time, the economy was faced with all this plethora of challenges. So it was a very difficult situation.
But if you look at the analysis,
yeah.
When this e-levy conversation started, even before it was passed, the projections were quite clear that even if Parliament had approved it at the time without the delay, which was as a result of the questions that members of Parliament were asking, the concerns that were raised about the impact of the e-levy, I don't think that the delay was just because of the politics per se. But if you look at the issues, I'm coming to the point, that the members of Parliament raised, to the extent that it was going to be punitive and regressive, and the impact on the poor, that you said you had pro-poor policies in there, but yet still the first form that the e-levy came impacted on the vulnerable and the poor population. That's why you even went to review it in the first place.
I still don't want us to just limit this whole discussion to just the e-levy. I'd mentioned about 7 policies that government was going to undertake. In there, I said aggressive revenue mobilization. And the e-levy was just one of the policies the government was going to use to do that. We're also going to, it was a case of us going through fiscal consolidation. And we couldn't only look at the revenue aspect without looking at the expenditure aspects. Before this whole thing started, the minister had come out with a couple of measures, announcing measures to be able to rationalize some of our expenditures. And we're also going to boost local production capacity to show our foreign exchange, BOP situation, and all of that. So it wasn't just a case of e-levy failing. That's why we went to IMF. We had policies in the budgets that we believed had the capacity to be able to resolve the challenges that our vulnerable economy had to face post-COVID. Hence, we had come out with a post-COVID program for economic growth, with a PCE, which is the basis on which we went to the IMF. So if domestically we couldn't get to the point of the point we had envisaged in revenue mobilization, we had to look for alternatives. And the IMF, as being members of the IMF is always the lender of last resort. And so we had to resort to the IMF when our local policies were not hitting the levels that we had expected. That's why at one point we believed that we had local solutions to it, and at the point when we realized that the situation was actually getting out of hand, we had to go. Look, we run an economy where within a year, 2% of your GDP is lost to the energy sector through issues like distribution losses and recovery of tariffs and the IPP payments and all of that. 2% of your GDP. such an economy is always susceptible to external factors. So when they hit, it hits us very, 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 very hard. And we had to deal with all of this at the same time. That is why when we realized that the situation was quite difficult, we had to resort to the IMF, and that's what has brought us to this point.
Well, you see, when you look at the IMF's document announcing this external credit facility, they say that Ghana's pre-existing fiscal and debt vulnerabilities were exacerbated by the large external shocks in recent years, resulting in a loss of international market, increasingly constrained domestic financing, and reliance on monetary financing of the government. Those were the issues. You did not admit the fact that there was the reliance on the financing of government budget by the Bank of Ghana. Yes. One of the reasons why there's been a memorandum of understanding that has been signed to ensure that the Bank of Ghana does not finance government budget going forward. And if you listen to the governor during the press conference, he actually said that prior to 2021, in fact, at the end of 2021, our inflation were relatively low, a little over 12%. But then because of the issues that came and they had to finance government budget, we saw inflation rise within a year to over 50%. Mm-hmm. But that was a situation that especially you, the NPP, had always resisted, that it wasn't the case, and you were having a strong economy until COVID, but you listen to the governor, and he contradicts that particular position.
Alfred,
including what the IMF has said in this document.
Alfred, the situation is that, number one, we are by far an import-dependent economy. We import virtually everything we consume. Virtually. I mean, not everything, but I mean virtually. When we got to a situation where we started experiencing the downgrades, right? When we got to the situation where our access to the international market, well, the international capital market was limited. And so we couldn't do the annual transactions that we had been doing in previous years to be able to get some foreign exchange to shore up our reserves. When we couldn't forestall, I mean, given also at the same time the situation, interest rate regime in the global terms, in the US markets, in the European markets, we saw capital flights, domestic people were giving out their domestic investments, changing to the US dollar and investing in the US. We lost all of that. At the same time, it meant that our currency started depreciating. And once our currency was depreciating and we were import dependent, it meant that it just made sense that general prices were going to go high. And that is what is reported for inflation. It is not a case of we being a productive or as a push inflation. It was more a pull inflation that transpired at the time. And we had to deal with it. That resulted in the central bank financing it. Prior to that, we had virtually zero funding of our budget since we've been in power. So it was a situation that the central bank had to step in, and coupled with the insistent structural defects of our economy.
So
I mean, we cannot run away with that. I have mentioned and stated.
This situation on Russia, Ukraine, as has always been the chorus till now.
You see, Alfred, I don't know why you're moving from what you just read. Mm-hmm. Said that we had domestic vulnerabilities, and that was made more serious by external shocks. Is that what the report is saying? Am I wrong on that? Indeed. So it meant, and the structural defects that we have. I have stated some of the defects that we, as a people, not just a New Patriotic Party, I said that in our energy sector, and it's in that report, that every year we lose 2% to our GDP as a result of either distribution losses, as not pricing our energy at the levels that we have to, and then also the IPP payments. And these are the real issues that we have to deal with as an economy. Until we move away from them, that structural defects will always make us vulnerable to external shocks. And that is what we are trying to face up. Now we have the quarterly review of tariffs and all of that. They are going to be burdensome going forward. No two ways about that. But these are strong medication we have to take to be able to resolve that structural defects that we have in our system. Else, it's going to be cyclical.
So you saying that this government should not be held responsible in any way for going to this IMF?
The structure of the economy that we run, I have stated.
I just want to find out.
I have stated.
Are you saying that it's just all about the structural defect and what you came to inherit and what the external shock came, and nothing to do with decisions that were taken that also led to we excessively borrowing and the mismanagement that we saw that also exacerbated the situation that we were in?
Unless you're able to point out specific decisions that actually led to the situation. I am telling you, and per the report that you have in front of you, it's telling you what the assessment of the situation by the IMF is and how we got to where we are today.